Trade Genius.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Philip with Trade Genius. All right, so there's been a lot of volatility today in the markets. Bitcoin rolled over, went up again toward that 11,700 level, and was consolidating below it. And then we had a series of basically bad news that has come out. So I'm going to try to work through kind of what's culminated today as far as the FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so we'll go through, there's like four kind of big things today, and I think it contributed to like a knee-jerk reaction. One in particular, I think, was the main catalyst for a lot of selling across the exchanges. So we'll get into that. So first, there was news from Japan, and basically, and I don't take this as bad news, okay? This is just regulators trying to make sure that, you know, there isn't anything that's going to exploit the retail trader, I should say. So basically what they did was they said that they're going to close any exchanges that didn't comply with their financial service agency, their customer protection and anti-money laundering measures. So if they don't have certain things in place like KYC, which is know your customer, so people can't create anonymous accounts on exchanges, things like that. If they don't have those procedures in place, then those are getting shut down. So that's one thing. Again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but the exchanges like Binance have servers in Japan. Now, Binance does do KYC, so they shouldn't be at risk for getting shut down at all. But other exchanges, people may sell their Bitcoin to pull their money out because they know that that exchange might be getting shut down. So there might be some transitory selling to move to other exchanges or things like that. SEC, you know, they came out saying that they think that basically ICOs, they're taking a harder stance on it. Basically, if you're in, and this is why Coinbase doesn't like to list a lot of different coins, because they're a little leery about what the ultimate stance is going to be on ICOs and then the tokens associated with it. So basically, the SEC, I think that's kind of a wait and see, but there may be some fallout in that some of these exchanges that have been trading some of these ICO tokens, those ICO tokens may come under SEC scrutiny, and so that might be an issue. And so few, if any, in the SEC's viewpoint are SEC compliant as far as these tokens, and that might subject you to unlawful acts. That's kind of like the regulatory stance. So there could be further bearishness in the alt markets until there's more clarification from the SEC. So anyway, just be careful out there when you are dealing with ICOs, because if they are considered a security token versus a utility token, that's where the big issue is. So that language from the SEC going to be bearish for, I think, the alt space in the near term. Binance had an issue. Now, the first initial information was Binance was hacked, and actually that's not really the case. What happened was users have what's called API keys. Okay, so these things allow third-party things like trading bots to interact with their account on their behalf. You can set up rules or whatever and turn the bot on, and it'll buy and sell according to the specific rules that you set up. There's third-party bots out there that you pay monthly for. Anyway, some of these users got their API keys compromised, and so the hackers were able to manipulate the trading activity on a bunch of different user accounts. So what they did is they did a coordinated pump and dump. The coin they focused on was Ven, and that pumped really hard, like 1,000%. So if you look at the data, potentially these guys could have profited about 3,000 Bitcoin based on kind of the coordinated selling activity. So really crazy amount. Again, this isn't a Binance exchange issue. This is a basically user account third-party issue. So if they had a crummy bot or API security, they weren't careful with their keys, then they get compromised. So, you know, again, with exchanges, you got to be very, very careful. But again, this isn't a Binance, like Binance got hacked. They've reiterated that all funds are safe, but these are user accounts with third-party apps that were compromised. So you have a series of things that came out in the last 24 hours, but I think the Binance hack, because that one allowed these guys to do coordinated pumping and dumping, and there was coordinated selling across all the exchanges at the same time, more or less. So this was a planned thing. I think that was largely the reason for why we saw a big move in Bitcoin today. I do think that it's going to bounce, and we'll get into looking at the chart on Bitcoin here in a minute. But the last thing was, there's a news floating around that a whale sold 400 million in Bitcoin. And so then people freak out about that because they think, well, what does he know that he's dumping all his Bitcoin? But that's not actually the case. That actually ties back to Mt. Gox. And I'm going to cover that in another video because that needs some more explaining, but I don't want to get too long into this video. I really wanted to kind of cover why there was the activity that we saw. So going back to Bitcoin chart, let's take a look at the chart and we'll look at where we're at. So this is on the daily, guys. So basically what's happened is, again, we've come up to this level. Again, like I said, 11,700, very key to, and this is on Coinbase/GDAX. What we've done is we've come down and we've rolled over. Now, you notice I've kept this trend line even though it broke, because a lot of times the possibility of retesting these trend lines still remains. We're still in an uptrend here from the bottom, although on the bigger scale we're still in a downtrend, and that's going to stay that way until we break above this big bear fib zone. But you know, we've got to bounce off that trend line. And so now if we drill down to lower time frames, what happens typically is when you get, when you get a drop down like this, what happens is, and this is what was starting to happen here on this red bar, is that you would get a rollover. They call this a dead cat bounce. It's a trading term. Comes from the saying that if a cat falls from high enough up, even a dead cat will bounce. But anyway, it's a trading term, and it means when you come down and you flush out like this, you're gonna start to roll over. This bar was really, like, you know, key. This is a 15-minute chart to see that if this was going to roll over or not, because that's typically when it happens. And this actually stopped, and this is exactly what you want to see. If this, see how we got a long wick here, okay, and on good volume, that's a capitulation bar. So now what you want to see is this high get taken out of 99.47, and then you want to see kind of the short-term bulls get back in control above 10,185. All right, get a couple closes above that, and then you've got this resistance now of where we broke out at 10,426. So those are the levels I'm looking at for this thing to climb back above. If this was basically just an event from some coordinated selling from some guys that got into the exchanges and API accounts, then this is an isolated event. This should bounce and recover. All right, guys. Last thing we'll look at is kind of the alt versus Bitcoin. So here is this upper plot is the 6-hour, and the lower one is a 24-hour. Okay, so this is alt. This is Bitcoin versus 110 alts, a basket index, and so we got to refresh. And basically, you know, as you can see, alt's actually not doing as bad as BTC. And if you look at the 24-hour plot, basically it's just showing that we didn't have any inverse movement. This was all kind of like, you know, alts actually led the way. We were inverse here until this dump happened, and then everything fell over right at this point here. Fell over and came down together, and now we're kind of recovering here. So, but alts actually are faring a bit better here since the initial dumpage here. All right. Okay, so that's basically it. I think, again, in a nutshell, looking for these key levels to get conquered. So again, we want to see a break of the high of 99.47. I'd like to see a break of 10,185, and then ultimately get above this resistance area here of around 10,430. Okay, we'll get back above those levels. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Just wanted to get you kind of an explanation of what was going on. Next video, we're going to talk about the Mt. Gox $400 million worth of BTC, excuse me, getting sold back onto the market. Thanks for watching, guys. Please hit like and subscribe. Helps us out a bunch. Take care.
Trade Genius.